We're on the verge of history here, folks, as we approach the 2022 NFL Draft. We have 7 teams with multiple first-round draft picks, including the Philadelphia Eagles right there with 3 draft choices, 15, 16, and 19. And if all of these teams stick and pick with these multiple choices, that'll be the most teams to make multiple first-round draft picks we've ever seen. And then on the flip side, the 8 teams that are without a first-round draft pick, also the most we've ever seen. Rhett Lewis back here with our lead draft analyst, Daniel Jeremiah, as we try to dig into some of these teams with the multiple draft picks. Let's start, DJ, with the New York Jets, who have 2 in the top 10. What do you see there?
Yeah, they've got a bunch of different areas they can go. When you think about a premier wide receiver, obviously we know they were in on Tyreek Hill, so that puts them in the wide receiver market for everybody to know that. Edge rusher, corner, those would be the next areas. And then offensive line is the area they could go. I think they can line up and play. They've got a good group provided Becton comes back healthy. But if I was looking, I would say one of those picks, I believe, would be a receiver.
Yeah.
You look at 10. To me, you look at Garrett Wilson, Drake London, those guys kind of being in play there. And then at pick 4, it's just, I really think it's best available player, however they have it slotted.
Yeah, I'm going to look at the Detroit Lions, who are picking at number 2 and 32, so essentially bookending the first round of the draft. And I feel like they're in a great spot at number 2 because they're going to get one of the top 2 edge rushers in this year's draft, whether it's Aiden Hutchinson, if he doesn't go number 1, or Trayvon Walker out of Georgia, who absolutely has blown up this pre-draft process. So I love their options there at number 2 to get an impact pass rusher. And then at 32, could get really interesting because, are they satisfied with Jared Goff, who they could certainly go out there and win some games with this year, like they did, especially towards the back end of last year? So I think they've got an opportunity at that point to then take a quarterback that they want to develop. Maybe he's the next great guy. Maybe he takes them from good to great, and they get the 5th-year option in the process. DJ, what do you think, though, about the Giants, who also have 2 top 10 picks here?
Yeah, when I look at this Giants team, I really look at 2 areas. You're looking at offensive tackle, and I think they're going to have a great shot at number 5. I wouldn't have thought that a month ago, but I think we've seen kind of the emergence. Trayvon Walker definitely getting up there in the mix. I don't think he's there when they pick on the defensive side. So I think they could go offensive line at 5, whether that's Evan Neal, Ike Ekwonu. They come back at 7. Now you start looking at what's left there from an edge rusher perspective, because I think that's the other area you'd like to address. And I think, there might be a situation where Jermaine Johnson is your highest rated player out of Florida State as an edge rusher. But this feels very much, they're called the Giants. I think this is a giant draft for them. They get a bunch of big guys here, a couple big ones, offensive lineman and a defensive lineman.
Another team, of course, with a pick up there in the top 10, and then one just outside the top 10, the Houston Texans, picking at 3 and 13. And I think, again, at 3, they're in a great position to get a marquee player, an impact player. I wouldn't hate it if it's an offensive tackle, if their top 2 edge rushers are gone at 1 and 2. Ike Ekwonu slides in there at right tackle with Laramie Tunsil at left. I think you're in a great spot there. Also, if they want to take the 3rd best edge rusher, also okay with that at number 3. I think they're in a great spot to get an impact player. And then at 13, if Davis Mills is our guy and we're really going all in there with Davis Mills, why not get another receiver to go out there and support him after taking Nico Collins wide out last year, Brevin Jordan at tight end last year? Maybe that's a Garrett Wilson spot. Maybe that's a Jamison Williams or Chris Olave or Drake London spot there. But then the other part of me is like, man, what about a guy who could dictate culture on the other side of the ball? What if Devin Lloyd's there at 13? Could be an interesting spot after they parted ways with, guys who have been stalwarts for them, and Justin Reed and Zach Cunningham on the defensive side of the ball. With that, then let's dig into the Packers here, Deej.
Yeah, the Packers here picking at the bottom of round 1. I mean, receiver is that blinking light, right? You can look at the need. Devontae Adams is gone. Marquez Valdez-Scantling is gone. They need wideouts. And I know they don't take wideouts in the first round. They like to take them in the second round. They've had a long history of success. So maybe that's what they do. We've been talking about maybe taking wideouts there in the first round. Maybe they just move back a little bit with at least one of those picks. And that's where you see the wide receivers come off the board. They also need some depth and some quality there at tackle. Get some youth at that position. I could see them looking in that direction as well on the offensive line. So a lot of different areas the Packers could go, but you got to believe that wideouts got to be one of their first picks, whether it's sticking and picking or whether they're moving back a little bit and taking some help there for Aaron Rodgers.
Speaking of wideouts, the Kansas City Chiefs lost one of the best in the business, sending him to Miami, Tyreek Hill, in that big trade. But in doing so, they acquired another first-round draft pick, which they could, of course, turn around and use on a wide receiver. And I think that's where we look at the intrigue of a guy like Christian Watson as as they maybe try to break the mold a little bit from what they've been doing on offense, which of course has been, speed, and he's got plenty of it, but he also gives you a little bit of that physical mindset, right? Bigger bodied guy, which they haven't necessarily had out there as a big time player on offense for Patrick Mahomes. So I could see Christian Watson if they stick and pick there at the back end of the first round. And then looking at the next pick, 29 and 30, Charvarius Ward, who's been a player that they've relied on at the cornerback position the last couple of years, left via free agency. There's a corner there at 30. That could be a really interesting spot. Maybe a guy like Kyler Gordon, who kind of thrived in that heavy target environment as teams were trying to stay away from McDuffie over on the other side at Washington. So I think corner, whether Gordon's their flavor or not there, could be another spot to look for the Chiefs at 30, DJ.
Yeah, I like that one. I think we've got one team left here
Get
with
the
multiple
Eagles.
picks. I believe it's the Philadelphia Eagles picking 15, 16, 19. Well, I should say they own those picks presently. I do not think they will execute all three of those picks. I anticipate at least one of these is going to move back. I wouldn't be surprised if they move back with two of them, trying to collect assets in next year's draft. This is a discussion early in the offseason was, are they committed to Jalen Hurts? Is it going to be Russell Wilson? What's their future like at the quarterback position? I think, to me, it makes sense. This is a trial year, another tryout year here for your quarterback. And if you see the improvement that you want to see there going forward with Jalen Hurts, that's great. If not, you could accumulate some assets in next year's draft class where you can get back into the quarterback market. But where they're picking right now, if they executed those picks, you're looking at wide receiver. It could be a Chris Olave. You're looking at, I know they don't historically take linebackers, but they have a need. Devin Lloyd, who you mentioned a minute ago, would be a great fit for them. And then edge rusher. Karlaftis, is there a chance he's there when they pick in the teams? I think that's an opportunity. So those would be a couple names I would look at if they stick and pick, which they won't.
So there you go. If they do, but they're not going to. One thing you're going to get right here with DJ, of course, is the best in draft analysis up until the NFL draft, through the NFL draft. We are inside the 30-day mark. We've got you covered on Move the Sticks, on Path to the Draft, everywhere right here on NFL Network. So excited to have you guys aboard for the ride here as we get closer to Las Vegas.